Watch this.
Idaho taxpayers are on the hook for the lieutenant governor's legal costs after a failed court battle. But what are the costs? Hard to say. The lieutenant governor tells us she never got a bill. Something smells off in Boise. You asked, so we're putting our nose into it to find out what the smell is. And there is a new pup on the force. Boise police welcomes Clover, a 2-year-old golden retriever. We're going to tell you what makes this doggo different. Last week during the lieutenant governor's press conference, where she claimed the attorney general's office had given her bad advice but failed to say what that advice was, citing attorney-client privilege. Well, the lieutenant governor said that she was told to seek outside legal counsel in her battle with the Idaho Press Club. Well, within just the last half hour, we actually received an email from the Attorney General's office, and this is an email we've been looking for a few days now. In that email to the Lieutenant Governor's office, Deputy Attorney General Rachel Colts tells Jordan Waters, who is Lieutenant Governor McGeachin's chief of staff, that they do not believe that McGeachin could redact certain information as a part of the press club's public records request. The email, which you're looking at on your screen right now, it explains that and ends with giving the lieutenant governor the option to seek outside legal counsel should she not agree with the AG's opinion. She did disagree with the AG's opinion, and she went and got her own outside private counsel. The lieutenant governor very clearly didn't like the advice from the AG, which is fair, so she found another opinion. But there are still a lot of unanswered questions about that private counsel to McGeachin's office and her legal battle with the Idaho Press Club. One of the biggest questions, how much will this whole ordeal cost Idaho taxpayers? And here's what we know so far. McGeachin was fined $750 by an Idaho judge for what he called bad faith violations of the Idaho Public Records Act. Now, that stems from McGeachin initially refusing to release public records from her education task force. She eventually did release those records one day after the press club asked the judge to hold her in contempt of court for failing to do so. Now, on top of the fine, the judge in the case ordered McGeachin to pay $28,596.50 in court costs and legal fees. Now, those are the legal costs that the Idaho Press Club had during their successful case. That number, though, $28,596.50, does not include private legal fees that the lieutenant governor accrued after she opted to not work with the Idaho Attorney General's office on the case. Interesting to note, though, in late August, the lieutenant governor submitted a supplemental budget request to the state of Idaho. The total being, quote, $50,000 to pay for legal bills that cannot be covered by the lieutenant governor's office current budget without reducing staff hours and constituent services. That $50,000 in taxpayer funds she requested will be brought before the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee as a supplemental budget item to the Lieutenant Governor's 2023 fiscal year budget, and that'll happen sometime this week at JFAC. But how did her office come up with the $50,000 when she was charged just over $28,000? We submitted a public records request asking for any records involving outside legal fees and consultation. I got a response today from the Lieutenant Governor's office in regard to that request, and I'm going to read it basically in full here. This was an email sent to me this morning. Quote, specifically, the Lieutenant Governor is denying your public records request on outside legal consultation. Attorney-client privilege is part of state law, see Idaho Code 9-2032, and is further explained in a different part of Idaho Code. Email went on to tell me that furthermore, Idaho Code 74-104 clarifies that any public records made exempt from disclosure by the state or federal law are also exempt from disclosure under Idaho Public Records law. Now, records between the Lieutenant Governor's office and that of legal counsel are protected by attorney-client privilege and therefore exempt from disclosure. As of this date, the office has not received any invoices for outside legal fees. Again, the official response from Lieutenant Governor's office. So for now, that response I gave you, that's the answer. But to be clear, though, the Lieutenant Governor is allowed to talk about whatever she wants. Attorney-client privilege here doesn't prevent her from talking. She can choose not to, but she is not legally prevented from telling Idaho taxpayers how much money she spent on legal fees with a private attorney. And late this afternoon, we received another letter, this time from the Idaho Joint Democratic Caucus. They tell us a lot of things, and all four of the people signed on at the bottom of this letter are Democrats and are members of the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee. And they're asking the Lieutenant Governor's office to release several pieces of documentation, including the Attorney General's opinion, how her office plans to pay her legal fees, an unredacted copy of the engagement letter between McGeachin and her private attorney, and copies of all the legal invoices. The Democrats say that those documents will help them make a decision on whether or not to grant the lieutenant governor's request to get $50,000 in supplemental budgeting. Now, as they also point out, McGeachin is not bound to attorney-client privilege, as she is the client and can release any information she wishes. Now, to be clear, it may not be the best option for the lieutenant governor to speak publicly on that, which is understandable. But to be clear, she is allowed to release that info. She is choosing not to. Well, it may be halfway through October as we're getting towards Halloween, but you know what else is on the calendar? Election season. And now we're in the thick of it. Early voting for the November 2nd election, it began today in Ada and Canyon counties. That this isn't a presidential election year. It's not until 2024, but there are still very important local elections happening. So keep an eye out because you are going to want to vote. In Canyon County, the city of Caldwell mayor's seat is up for grabs as the city's longest-serving mayor, Garrett Nancolis, who began in office in 1997, he is not seeking re-election, so a big vacancy there. In Nampa, current mayor Debbie Kling is seeking re-election. She's being challenged by Gerald Smith. And finally, city council seats will be up for grabs in Nampa, Caldwell, Middleton, Star, and Greenleaf. Those make a big difference in your community. In Ada County, city council candidates will be decided in Boise, Meridian, Garden City, Kuna, and Eagle. More than a dozen people are running to sit on Boise's city council. And a new law passed by the Idaho legislature this past spring will actually require one member from each district to be represented on the city council. That's all new, meaning members cannot all come from the North End, for example. Every district now has to be represented. Current council members Lisa Sanchez and Holly Woodens are running for re-election. TJ Thompson says he will vacate his seat after his term is over. Also, West Ada is asking voters to approve a $28 million supplemental levy over 2 years. Garden City will vote on whether to re-elect their current mayor, John Evans, or vote in challenger, Hannah Ball. Obviously, there are several more elections being held this year, and what is on your ballot will depend on exactly where you live, but you can check out a sample ballot on your county elections website. And we're going to also have more information in our voter guide, which will soon be up at ktvb.com. We'll keep you posted. But again, early voting starts today. In Ada County, you can vote at Boise and Meridian City Halls and at the Ada County Elections Office for early voting. You can also vote at the Mobile Voting Center. It's out and about, but you can find its voting locations on the Ada County election website. You never know, it may just be a block from you at work. Over in Canyon County, voters can cast their ballots early at the Caldwell Train Depot, with the exception of Mobile Voting Center. Locations for both Ada and Canyon counties are open for early voting Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. Again, the mobile voting truck may be different. The last day to vote early in both counties will be Friday, October 29th. Again, the election coming up on November 2nd. And if you're planning on requesting an absentee ballot, you'll need to do this by Friday, October 22nd. So that's coming up quickly. One more time for you. Circle this in your calendar. Election Day, Tuesday, November 2nd. That is just about 2 weeks away.
It was really upsetting, obviously, to see something that bold and, really stating out loud, like, you are not welcome here.
Their conditional use permit has not been approved, but Interfaith Sanctuary's new proposed shelter in Boise was hit by vandalism over the weekend. We'll show it to you here. You're going to see it on the front window of the building. Someone defaced a sign that read, quote, "You are all welcome here," by crossing out the word welcome. You see it right there. The new location has been a point of contention for some neighbors since the move was announced back in January. Boise police have been notified, but it's unclear who defaced this sign. And as it turns out, that's not the only issue they've seen in terms of vandalism. Jody Peterson-Steigers, the shelter's executive director, who you heard from just a few moments ago, they tell us that they've also been having issues on the backside of their new property, including people just going back there and dumping trash or landscaping. They tell us even dog poop is just being thrown back there. Interfaith Sanctuary purchased the property on State Street near Willow Lane. It was formerly the Salvation Army. Well, they purchased that late last year in hopes of relocating and turning it into a 24/7, 200-bed facility with more community services available nearby. But some neighbors continue to voice their opposition to the project.
It's not the messaging of the whole neighborhood, and we know that. We know that there are kind people in that neighborhood, and they have reached out and they're supportive. This is a representation of a small group of people who are opposing, and they seem to think that this kind of communications is going to serve them well, but it won't, because hate never wins. I know our community, and I know that there's so much more love and support than there is hate for us, for our homeless population, and for this project.
The shelter is still waiting for their conditional use permit, which is scheduled to go before Boise Planning and Zoning on November 15th. Ew, what is that smell? That's what people living in the Boise area along the connector are wondering. Is it a bad smell? Something more? Well, you ask, we answer. That's how it works here. And you asked about the smell, so we're putting our nose into it. We have details on what it could be coming up. Something else you want us to investigate, though? I hear paranormal activity is on the rise this month. Either way, send us a comment, question, recipe, picture, really anything. The number, 208-321-5614. Make sure to include your name and hashtag the 208. You never know, your comment could be on at the end of the show. If you're a viewer of this show regularly, you know this. We see a lot of questions from you into the 208, and we love reading and investigating those so we can help answer your questions, community questions. We got a unique collection of text messages over the last few days about a supposed smell in the Boise area. And we're not talking about the sweet smells of fall and comfort food cooking. Oh no. Longtime residents along the connector in Boise tell us recently it has smelt like raw sewage, or something of that nature. And I spoke to one viewer this morning who told me that the smell, to her, it is worst in the early mornings and night, and it is very hard to smell. And we got these text messages in. I want to read these to you. This person writes, "Hello KTVB, I work over by the mall on Cole. In the last 3 weeks, there's been a horrible smell in the air. In fact, it's coming in through our vents, so we have to sit in the stink all day. In fact, most of us wear a mask inside the office building, not for COVID, no, but to relieve ourselves of getting nauseous." Another person wrote to us saying, "Hi, what's this horrible sewer smell? I live near Cole Franklin Curtis. It smells horrible and I've lived here for 14 years. Never smelled this before, help." We sent our photographer, Kevin Esslinger, out to the smell site. The smells, he confirmed, pretty stinky. Thank you for the report, Kev. But the general area we're talking about here, again, Cole Franklin Curtis roads, and some people say they smelled this odor by the mall. So we got a lot of comments. We started making some calls. I called the Department of Environmental Quality, the DEQ, to see if they had any reports into their system about the smell. And guess what? They sure did. Some reports we got, something like raw sewage, they got the same. The DEQ pinpointed the smell and general cause, and this is where it was tracked to. Roll the drum here, blah, 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 air drum. The Dairy Gold facility on Allenbaugh in Boise, and DEQ tells me that a problem with the sewage and wastewater system was causing the stinky issue. And the DEQ tells me that the city of Boise is working on the issue with the facility, and there is treatment underway already. That smell is still there though, but the goal is to get it cleared out as soon as possible. In terms of air quality and possible violations, DEQ tells me although it is an unpleasant odor, there are no violations here. And they also tell me they believe there's nothing toxic in that smell. The DEQ did investigate the entire thing. So long story short, it may be a nuisance, it may be annoying, it may smell bad, but it is not dangerous, and we're hoping it is cleared up very shortly. Every once in a while here on the 208, we like to take you around the state for a segment we like to call Get to Know Idaho. Small towns, weird names, strange stories, interesting tidbits all about the state of Idaho. And we've taken you to dozens already, but this one may have the most interesting backstory to it. One we first told you about nearly 2 years ago. About 3.5 hours north of Boise, deep in the middle of Hell's Canyon, the deepest gouge in North America sits, the town of Riggins. But before it was officially called Riggins, it was for a short time actually known as Gouge Eye.
At the bottom of one of the deepest gorges in North America, along the banks of the Salmon River, sits Idaho's whitewater capital, or what we all know as the friendly town of Riggins. But it wasn't always so friendly. In the 1850s, the town was once known as Gouge Eye. Rock Wilson, Riggins' unofficial historian, says a vicious saloon fight broke out between two men, Homer Levender and Big Markham. What were they fighting over? A lady, Daisy Trumbull, who just happened to be of marrying age, and the two men were fighting for her, well, affection. According to those watching the fight, Big Markham's eye was nearly gouged out. Jokingly, locals began referring to the town as Gouge Eye, and that name stuck until the early 1900s. In 1901, Dick Riggins applied for a post office in Gouge Eye, but was rejected because of its violent name. Some suggested the town be named after two of the area's most prominent families, the Clays or the Irwins. Wilson says those were rejected because, well, they were too common. So ultimately, Riggins was named after Dick, who became the city's first postmaster general.
Clouds took over late last night, and they've been tough to break apart through the day today, but our temperature is much closer to average for this time of year. The high so far in Boise today is 62, 64 in Caldwell and Nampa. It is significantly cooler than it was this weekend, though, some 10 to 15 degrees cooler than this time yesterday for most of the Treasure Valley and the Magic Valley. So here's all the cloud cover, everything kind of spinning in from the east-southeast, and you see some scattered showers making their way up into the central mountains as well as through the Magic Valley. Not out of the question to see a spot sprinkle in the Treasure Valley through the rest of this evening. All of this is associated with this low pressure center that's tracking by just to our south, bringing a whole lot of precipitation to the Salt Lake City area. But for us, it's just really more cloud cover. That clears overnight, 36 to 41 for our early morning lows tomorrow. Could be some patchy morning frost in some of the colder spots tomorrow morning in the Treasure Valley. And then tomorrow, my pick day of the week. Mostly sunny skies, 63 to 70 degrees. You're looking at the highs that are expected for tomorrow. 67 is my forecast high for Boise, low 60s down through the Magic Valley. We are in for a major pattern change, though, and I think this is the big news of the forecast. Getting toward the end of the week and into the weekend, finally expecting a good dousing of rain. In fact, the Climate Prediction Center is favoring above average precipitation, and looking at long range models, I'm seeing the potential for anywhere from a half an inch to an inch and a half of precipitation of rain for the Boise area as we see some unsettled weather Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I want to show you that 7-day forecast as you see that active weather arriving just in time for the weekend. If you want a closer look at the forecast, you can always find it at ktvb.com.
Well, we are nearing the end of that magical 2-week period in Idaho where the fall colors, they start to lose their brightness, their wow factor. And Game of Thrones fans, this can only mean one thing. Winter's coming. But before it does make an appearance, let's take one final look at some of your beautiful shots that you shared with us. We'll call this the last moments of fall. Well, you know how much we love dogs here at the 208, so when the Boise Police Department introduced their new four-legged employee this morning, you already know we had to be there. So let's do this as a group. Everyone, meet Clover. This is Clover. She was officially adopted this morning from the Idaho Humane Society in Boise. She's a 2-year-old golden retriever who came to the shelter actually very sick. But after about 3 months of care, she was finally well enough to be put up for adoption. And BPD says they knew she would be a perfect fit for their department. Boise Police tells us that they recognize the need to continually develop care for their officers, including mental health and emotional well-being, so they can best serve the community. Well, Clover, as you can see, is a great resource for officers in the community. Now, she has some training to do. Clover's got some work to put in, but she will join the BPD bike unit team and provide emotional support to officers and community members during times of need. All around great girl. Clover, can't wait to see you out there. Oh, so cute. All right, let's take a look at some of your comments here to end the show. This one from Karen, I thought it was interesting. North Idaho is the boundary of the North American plate. Hell's Canyon is deep for that reason. Thank you, Karen. I really do like that fact. Steve wants to know, Joe, will you lead a search party to determine Brian Holmes' location? I can tell you he's on the East Coast. He will be back this week. What else we got here? This one is from Kathy. The 208, if you can smell the dairy, be thankful you probably don't have COVID. That is really interesting to me because I forget the early days of COVID that people were losing smell and taste, and that was really the trigger that got them to realize I need to go get tested and I need to go get a COVID test. So thinking back to early 2020 is always very interesting. But thank you so much for joining us here on the 208 on your Monday. Take care of yourself and each other. For all of you asking, Brian's expected to be back this week. For now, though, good night.